Welcome to SwarmCast, the marketing hive for pest control pros from coast to coast. If you're tired of your competition bugging you and want to grow your business like a well-built colony, you're in the right place. Each episode, we'll break down the latest marketing trends, expert insights, and proven strategies to help you exterminate the competition and keep your phones buzzing. So strap in, pest bosses. It's time to swarm the market and take your business to the next level. This is SwarmCast.
Welcome to the SwarmCast. Today we have Dave Bradford. He's going to go into what it takes to be a CEO, how to run your pest control business, things to think about if you're thinking about selling your business, and a whole lot more. Welcome to the SwarmCast, Dave.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, we're happy to have you, Dave Bradford, on this podcast. Here we are with the SwarmCast this afternoon, and how does somebody have so many experiences? And I just have to mention, I looked at your LinkedIn profile, 13 experiences: aerospace, pool industry, home services, Tupperware, airlines. I mean, good night. What haven't you done in your career? CEO, COO, CFO. I mean, how do you have so many experiences in that scenario? Can you just give us a little bit of what was that path? What did that look like?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Um, I was never that guy who knew exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, you can go all the way back to high school. My dad teased me all the time. He called me a cork in the ocean, and whichever way the wind was blowing is the direction I went. And now he was frustrated by it, because in my 20s I really lacked drive and direction, really, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I finally realized with some help from spent a lot of time in the restaurant industry, waiting tables. I was a corporate trainer within the Chili's chain, which basically means you go to new locations and you're part of the training team to open a new restaurant in a new location, which actually was a lot of fun. But I finally realized with some help of, some other people that I probably needed to go get that piece of paper. Um, and I made the decision to go get the piece of paper, and I didn't know what the piece of paper, was going to say on it. But I just started down that path. And I was really lucky. I was friends with a couple of guys, roommates that had already graduated working at KPMG, and they convinced me I'd get a degree in finance and accounting, and I did. Um, but even the next gig, I didn't know, wasn't sure, and one of those guys that I went to high school with was the controller at an airline called AirTran, headquartered in Orlando. And he was a hunting buddy of mine, and he would come back to Texas a lot, and we'd go hunting together. And I kind of just jokingly said one day, I'm about to graduate. I was 31. I'm about to graduate. Are you guys hiring? And he goes, well, yeah, actually we are. We're looking for a senior accountant. And next thing you know, I'm driving a U-Haul from Texas to Orlando to take a job as a senior accountant for AirTran Airways. And
Wow.
that's kind of how I got into airlines. And from there, it was just, it's about realizing what you're good at. Kind of like my approach to college. I got into it, realized what I was good at, what was fun to me and what was natural. And that's kind of the direction I went. And same professionally. I took this job. Was really lucky, was willing to move around. I moved from Texas to Orlando to California to New York, back to Florida. I moved around, basically going after opportunities that had presented themselves. And I was willing to move, which provided me a lot of flexibility in taking on new responsibilities and gigs. And off I went, and the wind kind of blew the cork in certain directions, and I kept putting myself in situations to where I felt like I could be successful. And the different industries, the common theme among the all the different industries is really, really dynamic situations. Either turnarounds, extremely high growth, a company who wanted to get ready for a sale. I've done restructurings. I've been through Chapter 11 bankruptcies. And so because I built a skill set of being able to, I call it drinking from a fire hose. Um,
Yeah, yep.
that's not everybody can handle drinking from a fire hose and keeping a
No,
lot of
no.
different plates spinning all at the same time. And so that's why so many different industries is because situationally, um, each of those companies that I went to had something about it that made it kind of volatile and a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. And I was really good at that. And I was really good at, I call it straightening out a bowl of spaghetti, so to speak, implementing process, um, structure, getting people to focus on the right things that are value added. And that's what took me to a bunch of different industries. And that's what took me to private equity. Private
Okay.
equity tends to buy and invest in businesses where there's some investment thesis that involves either growth, turnaround, um, taking good improvement in and making it great, size, and building something from small to big, taking something undermanaged or unprofessionalized and professionalizing it. Like there's a lot of different versions of what private equity invests in. And because I was good at drinking from a fire hose and drinking spinning lots of plate, that just tended to match up really, really well with private equity. And then once I got into private equity, that also took me to a few different industries. So that's kind of how it happened.
That's awesome. And it says that you've been with Certus for 4 years, but as the CEO for 3 years and 2 months. I
Yeah.
see that you started off as the chief financial officer there. So you came
Yeah.
in and started working what you do. And I heard process is a huge piece, knowing how to drink from the hose, which Certus, give me an idea. How big is Certus right now? How many millions of dollars did you guys do last year?
Well, we're very acquisitive. So
Okay,
the
okay,
difference between, reported revenue and size versus run rate because of the acquisitions we've made. I think
sure.
last year we finished, I think right around 80 million, 81
Okay,
million.
okay, okay,
This year, because of the acquisitions, we're already up to about 100,
okay,
and we'll
okay,
finish the year at about 110 million.
okay. So you're going to be, I mean, the top 100 is always published. Do you guys know where you're probably going to be at the end of this year? Is it a race to the top 10 now? You guys going to hit that?
Um, I think most people, if you ask them about me, like I don't have a big ego. So for me, it's not about I'm really, really competitive.
Yeah, I got
So,
that. I got that.
I like being, if you're not, Ricky Bobby says, if you're not first, you're last. And so I like being
Exactly.
first.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to be top 10, but not because it's top 10. It just means that we're doing the right things. We're growing. We have a good, dependable, sturdy business that performs really well. And if we end up in top 10, great. But I think the
Yeah.
play is, look, my number one responsibility with our owners is to build shareholder value. I literally just had this conversation with my entire team. So every year we have a mid-year. We bring in all the ranch managers from around the country with the leadership team, with our area and regional managers. And I literally just had this conversation with them. Um, and My job as a CEO of Certus is to build shareholder value. But the reality is that Andy Ransom's job at Rentokil in London is to build shareholder value. Jerry at Rollins, his job is to build shareholder value. If you own your own business, what you're trying to do is build shareholder value for you as an individual and your family. So we all are trying to do the same thing when we're leading companies. Now, there's different ways to do it because of the life cycle or where you are in the life of your company. But as long as we're continuing to build a return on Imperial Capital is the PE firm that owns the majority of Certus, as long as we're generating a return on the investment and building shareholder value, to me, my management team, and our owners, we're going to keep going. You always hear about private equity having the 5-year itch, and generally around 5 years, they want to have an exit so that they can give their investors a return. I've been pretty fortunate at the last company I was with, Concentric, were the backers at EPS. They were in the investment for 10 years. Right now, with Imperial and Certus, we don't talk about timeframes. We talk about other goals like um, revenue size, growth rates, KPIs, whether it's your customer retention, employee retention, route completion, and as long as all those things are working, the company keeps growing and profitability keeps growing, and we keep increasing equity value and shareholder value. And so that's really what we're focused on versus time frame.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really some good stuff. Now, a lot of people that are listening on the SwarmCast are entrepreneurs, right? Like you were talking about, same thing, shareholder value. And they're looking to continue to grow their company. Some people get stuck in a stage one, stage two, maybe they don't get past 5 trucks. And it's the same thing, even on a larger scale, right? We have KPIs, but something gets done where it slows the machine down, where sometimes you feel like giving up. Have you seen that happen in some businesses?
Shoot, I've experienced that myself. It's,
Yeah.
it's cycles. I talk about cycles a lot. You know, I'm not a guy who greenfields and starts a business. That's just not, I it's not my forte. It is a grind. You have to wear a lot of different hats, do a lot of different things as you grow and you start navigating the life cycle of your business. I can take something and fix it, turn it around, structure it, um, give it some consistency and structure and process. To start something from scratch, like, man, I have a huge amount of respect for people who do that. And a lot of the companies we buy are exactly that. It's somebody who maybe was a technician or maybe was a sales guy or something at another company who decided they could go do it themselves, and they jumped off that cliff, diving board, whatever you want to call it, and took the plunge to try to do it themselves. Um, and it's very different. The guy who owns $1 million business is a very different place than the guy who started it from scratch and has gotten his business to 10, 15, or 20 million. But everywhere along the way, there are inflection points. When I am put into a business to do something with it, grow it, fix it, turn it around, add structure to it, there are inflection points. It doesn't matter whether you're big or small, those inflection points are common at any size business. And you have a few choices, there you can push through the inflection points. Um, you know, I had this conversation with my team as well. Growing up, I always heard you got to have money to make money, right? It takes money to make money. Sometimes your growth rate, you get to an inflection point where you've got to make an investment in the business. You make the choice of either selling it. I've taken it as far as I can go. I'm going to sell it to somebody else who can take it to the next level. Your other choice is to maybe borrow some money, get a bank behind you, get an investor behind you to give you some of the capital to make the investment that then takes it to the next level. Sometimes people partner with us. We buy their business. They come on board. We let them either have a stake in the business that keep a stake in the business that we bought, or even give them a stake in us and partner with us to take their business to the next level. So there's different ways you can do it. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just, it's what's your risk tolerance? Maybe how tired or how much energy you still have to keep going. But those inflection points are all different. Yeah.
They are, and there's different things that come up in people's lives, like we health issues, or maybe
Yeah.
there was a big financial hit, and
Yeah.
they got to make those calls where it's better to make those calls when you have the choice. Don't wait till you don't have a choice, right?
That's
Or
right. That's right.
so what one of the things I was hoping to get from you is obviously I got to work with your team. They came to my office here and they transitioned our pest control company to Certus, which is still in process right now. And I was just so impressed how they came in and just how professional and how they work through these processes that you must have put in place. They were good. They were really good. Just how, I think some CEOs, and I wasn't the operating CEO there, but you worry about your people. You worry, are they going to be treated right? Is
Yeah.
this a good decision? Because they become your family, right? And I'm thinking about what might be going through some people's minds if they're thinking about, hey, it's just time for me to hang up the gloves. I need to offload this business. I don't want to be dumb about it, and also I don't want my people to suffer or be mistreated. So, what can they do? That's those are hard decisions
Yeah.
to go through. I'm thinking especially for those guys that are that $15 million size or larger. That is a lifetime of grind,
Yeah.
and so what do you find is helpful for ones that start thinking that? What's good for them to think about? Is there a book to read? Is there somebody to follow? What are your thoughts there?
Well, a couple things. One, I take that as a big compliment, what you say about us and our team. My mentality is to put myself in the shoes of the seller. And look, my dad was a veterinarian, and I saw my dad grind his whole entire life from the time he graduated vet school. Um, because I was 6 years old when he graduated from vet school. And so I was with him, and he was really successful. Started a business, partnered with a guy, eventually carved out a small business. It was probably 2 or 300,000 in revenue, made the investment in a building, grew it to, I think, close to 2 million in revenue before he ultimately sold it. And um, him, like a lot of pest control operators, they have a ton invested, a ton of emotion, energy. It's their livelihood. It's their baby, so to speak. They grew it from nothing. They know every nook and cranny of the business. They know the people's names. They know the spouses of the people's names. They know the names of the children of those people, because that's their whole life. And my mentality is, which I learned watching my dad go through the process, you got to give their baby a lot of respect. And mine and my team's mentality is shoot people straight. To say that we're not going to change anything and we're not, like that's BS. Things are going to change. I tell my team all the time, you can't get better without changing. So not all change is bad. But the idea that you're going to sell this business and believe somebody who tells you nothing's going to change, it's going to change. Now, we're going to try and do it really respectfully. We're going to do it the right way. You're going to do it with a high level of integrity, character, and honesty. But at the end of the day, back to your question, what's being bought? Like when I buy a business, what are we most interested in? It's pretty simple. It's the customer base. It's really good people, technicians, salespeople, admins, customer service agents, whatever title you use, because finding really good people is hard. If you go out and talk to the top CEOs in the industry, they'll tell you labor cost, finding skilled people who care about the job that they do is our biggest challenge because everybody says pest control all the time is a people business. It really is. Pest control isn't going to get replaced by Amazon and it's not going to get replaced by AI. We're all going to use AI, but until there's somebody who can show up to a house, a robot, theoretically, who can show up to the house, make the person feel good about them being on your property, and provide a high quality service, we're pretty insulated from things like technology and Amazon. Now, who knows? You know, if you start talking about 20 years into the future, 30 years into the future, who knows? But right now, today, it's a people business, and we all are constantly looking for and competing against each other for really good people. And so when we buy a business, what is the thing? What's the assets we're buying when we buy a business? You're buying and you're getting employees with it, technicians, admins, salespeople. You don't want to lose them. They're the ones who have the relationship with the customers. And you definitely don't want to lose the customers because that's really the main thing that you're buying is the customer base and the relationship you have with those customers. Sure, you're getting some trucks. Sure, you might be getting some monitors and computers, but those are replaceable. It's those people, and I've seen it handled the wrong way. And you start losing people and you start losing customers, and it all kind of starts to shrink and deteriorate. So we're really, really mindful about how we interact with people and how you handle the people. Sometimes we find ourselves having to make tough decisions. But even when you're having to implement a tough decision, how you handle it and how you handle those people in a really respectful way is really, really important. And look, at the end of the day, this is a really big, small industry. Everybody knows everybody. And if you don't do it the right way, or if you lack character, if you lack honesty and you don't handle it the right way, word will get out and you find yourself in a position where nobody wants to sell you their business. So that's why we take that approach. If I was a seller, if I was not a seller, if I was a business owner, my mentality, even at Certus, is always to keep in mind the end game. And the end game could be handing it down to a child. The end game could be selling it. But be mindful and conscientious of what you think the end game is. And if you're in the very, very early stages, you're not thinking about the end game. You're thinking about the grind of what it takes to run and build this business. But I don't think there are right ways to build a pest control business, and I think there's wrong ways. And so at the end of the day, what does a highly valued pest control business look like? 85%. And so when I started at Certus, I created a board slide for me and our board, which outlined exactly what I'm about to tell you, which is what does a highly valued pest control business look like? Right? Because remember, my job is to create shareholder value. Ultimately, for private equity, when they go to exit, what is going to maximize the value of their business when they go to exit? And so I learned from people like Dan Gordon or Lance Tullius or the guys at Potomac about what was most highly valued out there. I had to go educate myself because I wasn't a pest control guy. I came into the industry. But there are pretty common themes throughout highly valued pest control businesses. Predominantly pest termite is the most valued. It doesn't mean the other services like wildlife aren't, but pest and termite is the most valued. Recurring pest and termite. So if your revenue stream's 85% plus, if you're running, mid 50% or higher gross profit margins. If your techs are highly productive, probably, for us, that means about 200,000 plus. Right now, we run about 270,000 of annual revenue per technician per year. I think if you're in the 225 or higher range, that checks a box. EBITDA or profit margin, on the bottom line, I think if you're at 20% or higher, that checks a box. And I think, this list, if you keep that in mind, and as you build your business, you kind of keep that end game in mind and what that end game looks like and what you want to do with it. And if it's monetize what you built, what does highly valued look like? And keep driving your business towards what highly valued looks like. That would be my advice.
Awesome. And that's all great advice because I've heard a lot of this. I got into pest control taking a walk with Mr. Scott Nolan, who ran Truly Nolan, right, for a very long
Yeah.
time in
Yeah.
the top 10 at the time. And we had that conversation. A lot of these points you just brought out, same thing, which is awesome. Where that message coming back to the community that listens to the SwarmCast or who's associated with our mastermind, we come in, we see individuals, and they're too focused on the project stuff one time, right? It's nice for the checkbook for that month, but hey, there's no reoccurring. You got to go sell it again.
Again, right.
And so the guys that are, want that reoccurring, it's a bigger piece. Don't segment yourself too thin on a small amount of customers that could tank your business as well. So there's all
Right.
kinds of different safety pieces of knowledge, which is great. But these are gems that you're giving for ones that are building in build mode. There are mistakes that can happen and can tank a company really quick in the pest control business, or they stay in that stage that's small. They're not willing to invest. They're going to grind for a long time. When we start talking and coaching in our mastermind, we start asking questions. Well, what's your goal? Where do you want to be? How fast do you want to go?
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't want to go fire hose fast.
Right.
you know then you get those guys and hey, let's get the door knockers in here, or let's drop $1 million in marketing. But like what you said, the most important value is your people. The
That's
people
right.
make or break that in any service industry job. And I've worked with a lot of different home services, and the same issue over and over again. We can't find good people. And
Right.
you've probably heard it. The best people have started their own company. Sometimes it goes that way if they want to. It's not always the case, but you know, um, when you're an entrepreneur. So I would ask you that question: when do you see that break where somebody's really a good person, but they should be running their own company? Do you ever see players like that?
No, I've never found myself in a situation where I met somebody or worked with somebody and said they should be. I have met people or been around people where I said, oh, they could if they wanted. But to go, to have the skill set to be able to go do it versus the desire to go do it, those are two very different things. Not only do you have to have the
True.
desire and be willing to go do it, you know, you can't just have the skill set and the ability. You have to have the mental fortitude to be able to go do it as well. And those two things kind of have to go together. Um, it's funny. I've told my nieces and nephews have all asked me because a bunch of them are anywhere from 19 to 30 years old. And they're kind of like me, cork in the ocean, trying to find their way. Now, my 19-year-old niece, she graduated number one in her class. She knew she went to Texas and wanted to go to Texas A&M. She's going to Texas A&M. She knows what she wants to get her degree in, right? A little different than some of her brothers or some of her cousins. who are trying to find their way. And I tell them all about pest control. Like I started in big publicly traded airlines, global, cargo and passenger. And I never knew anything about pest control until I got into it. I'm okay if I never go back to the airline business. The pest control business is phenomenal. And like I said, I mean, shoot, it grew 5% during the last recession. So it's extremely resilient. You saw it even happen during COVID. We already talked about it being Amazon proof. It's not gonna, technicians aren't gonna be replaced by AI anytime soon. It's just a really, really good business in a really, really dynamic world. And so I tell my nieces and nephews all the time, like if you want to be really successful and create something that you can really monetize for a really nice nest egg, go get into pest control because it's really phenomenal. But it takes a special mindset. The other thing I would tell, guys who started their own business, those inflection points. I've had this conversation with a couple of people. One of the inflection points is the business gets so big that I can't do everything. If it's small enough, I can wear 10 different hats and go in and out of different things, sales, marketing, finance, working with the CPA, handling the legal, right? Operations, licensing, all the equipment, all that stuff, right? I can do that on a small scale, but one of the inflection points is now it gets so big, I can't do everything. So who you choose to partner with, and it could be, and partner may mean hire, right? As an owner, I may be really good in sales and marketing, so I need to hire an operator to come help me run operations so that I can focus on this other stuff, back office, finance, legal, payroll, sales and marketing. But then the next inflection point is, okay, well, now even that's too much. I got a guy running operations. He's got this under control. He's developing and bringing up new leaders there. But it's time for me to either pick sales and marketing or back office. So I need to find a new partner. And who you choose to partner with, I would be really, really picky and really selective to make sure you're partnering with the right people who have the right mindset, who bring a skill set to you and your team that's really going to help you achieve and get to the next level.
Agree. Yeah, I've made some of those mistakes myself. I've been a business owner for 17 years, Dave, and everything that you're saying is so true. It makes me think of the EOS system, right? We have the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial operating system where you start off with, hey, I need that VO, that visionary. Sounds like you're a good visionary. And then you need that operator, the integrator, the guy that's, more. What's interesting is your skill sets are both. You don't get too many of those guys. That's pretty cool that you're a visionary and an operator. You had that COO, CFO. That's great, but that came from probably rolling a bunch of hats. I did both roles for a while. And a lot of these entrepreneurs that are listening to this that have their pest control businesses are going to have to do both until they can get that player. And it's so important to get that right player because if those two are not working together in that combination, it's going to be a rough one for sure.
Yeah, find people, you're 100% right. Find people that complement you. And here's what I mean by that. There's stuff I'm not good at. There's stuff that I really don't like to do. So I supplement my team, even at my size, with people who like to do things I don't like to do and who are good at things that I'm not good at. David Joels is my COO. He's a phenomenal operator, and his passion for sales is off the charts. My chief marketing officer is one of the most talented chief marketing officers and digital lead generators I've ever seen in my career. I'm not good at either one of those things. That's not my skill set. So, as you choose to add people to your team as you scale, find people who are good at the things that you're not necessarily good at or love doing the things that you don't love doing. Because if you can put a person in a role who's good who's good at it and loves doing it, all you got to do is get out of their way.
Love it. I love these are all great points, and we'll be sharing some of these clips and what I call reels. We're going to take some of this magic out, and we're going to see a lot of people respond to what you have to say. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to do our podcast today. Is there? I'm going to ask you, how many mentors have you had along the way, and/or peer organizations to help you get where you are today?
Um, I've had a lot of mentors. I mean, I've been really lucky. One of the guys, the guy that I mentioned to you before we started, that I graduated high school with and gave me my very first job. He and I worked at 5 different companies together. His name's David Lancelot. And, he taught me a lot. There's a lot of nuggets. One of the ones that he taught me was never take anybody's word for it, right? We're finance guys, we're accounting guys. That's kind of how I came up. And numbers and math are really, I'm really comfortable with it because it's real. Math doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. You can depend on the numbers, right? And he always told me, don't take somebody's word for it, make them prove it to you. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. I say that all the time. I also say, in God we trust, all others bring data, right? Um, but
I
I've had
love
a
it.
lot of
Love it.
those. Rob Schwartz was on our board, was the CEO at Home Team at one time. Really, really good resource and mentor for me, coming into the pest control business. Networks like NPMA, you go to FPMA in Florida or you go to Arizona's Pest Management Association, sit in those classes, listen to people. Seth has an annual event where he has a bunch of people out there, going to those, trying to pick the right courses, listen, learn, read as much, go to Dan Gordon and PCO Bookkeeper's website, PCT, MPMA, and just read. And I say it all the time, knowledge is power. And you try to take it in from anywhere and everywhere you can get it and learn as much as you can.
Absolutely. I love all that. I mean, I think it's great. We have a lot of resources here in Arizona, plenty in Florida. I met some of the best there in AZPPO. I was right across from the Certus booth. That was
Oh,
before we sold
good.
to you. Yeah, we were right across from each other. I had the Swarm Tower. Well, I didn't bring the tower there, but we were right across from those guys. And little did I think that you guys would be sitting in our office and a couple months later. But
Yeah.
Certus is definitely top notch what you guys are doing. We're really happy to have you on the podcast today. I'm going to see you at Pest World here in October if you're going.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
be
I'm
there.
working. I'm working on a book. Speaking knowledge is power. I'm putting together all the top technology companies and how they're using AI in the pest control business.
Mm,
I've challenged them to write 10 pages for me. And for each one of them, I'm going to try to get at least 10, maybe more in that book to use as a resource. We have a couple of sponsors like Applause, Cinch, and a couple other ones out there that they're doing some phenomenal things on workflow and technology. Like you said, hey, you got to trust the data. You got to get the data out of the thing to make better decisions,
right.
driving KPIs, driving big data helps us to make better decisions, especially in the CEO, CFO, COO spot, where it's really driving a profitable company. But being that all tied together, right? How are we using this technology as opposed to just talking theory when it comes to AI or any of this other stuff that's out there? But
Yeah. Well, I'm a
I
big
will
fan
still,
of Taylor. Taylor and those guys at Applause, we use them. We
yep,
use Applause. I'm a really big fan. We're talking to them right now about their tech scorecards and I think they're doing some really interesting stuff. So I think they're a great
absolutely.
resource to talk to.
Yeah, they approached us at Pest World last year, and they're sponsoring our mastermind events. Great partner.
Yeah.
We've got three really good case studies going on right now that they're just destroying it with. I want to talk about that sub $5 million marker businesses where they get a price point where you can go in there, make a difference, pay the technicians. as they're driving these good behaviors, whether it's with driving scoring or just asking for the review and going the extra mile. They have been great. So
Yeah.
I will see you there. We might be even talking before, but thank you so much for being on the SwarmCast today. We look forward to having you on in the future. Okay.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate having the conversation with you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
That's a wrap on this episode of SwarmCast. Thanks for tuning in and arming yourself with the marketing firepower to keep your pest control business thriving. Before you scurry off, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a review. It helps us spread like a well-placed bait station. Got a topic you want us to tackle? Drop us a line and let's keep the conversation buzzing. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strategic, and keep swarming the market.